Let's turn the clock back to the London game that we had before the afternoon games got kicked off. It was the Jacksonville Jaguars against the team that you just mentioned, the New England Patriots. So Jacksonville really needing a win here. I mean, of course, the Patriots did too, but let's face it, I think that people know what this Patriots season is. And we'll get into some of the meaning and the takeaways that we have in this game. Jacksonville wins this game 32-16. Let's take a look at the top 5 graded players here from Jacksonville as the winners of this one. Rookie Brian Thomas Jr., a 91.6. A big part of that comes from the 60-yard bomb that him and Trevor Lawrence connected on, which was on Christian Gonzalez too. I don't know. That play specifically, I just want to say, Gonzalez was in elite position. Like, you basically cannot play that any better without maybe getting a forced incompletion. So it was just a damn good job by Lawrence and Thomas to really come down with that one and a big play in that game. Number 2 on this list for the Jags, Arik Armstead with an 89.9 overall grade. Cornerback Jerry Jones with an 82.0. I'll talk about him more in a sec. Defensive tackle Devon Hamilton with an 81.6, and then offensive tackle Walker Little with a 79.3. Trevor Lawrence in this game, 86.2. Flipping over to New England side of things, tight end Austin Hooper had the top grade with an 89.4. It was the only grade in the 80s. Then we jumped down at number 2 to Jonathan Jones. Their cornerback is 77.5. Tight end Hunter Henry with a 75.2. Anthony Jennings, their edge rusher, a 72.7. And then offensive tackle Mike Onwenu with a 71.7. Drake May in this game here, 53.2 PFF grade. Stat that told the story here for you.
It's really a story of one team ran the ball and one team didn't, and I'll go with the New England side of it. Look, Drake May, I thought actually when he was in a clean pocket and he had just a little bit of help with some pass protection and the receivers catching the ball, I thought Drake May looked pretty decent in this game. Under pressure, it was a struggle, but he's going to be under pressure a lot. The problem is he really got no help from his run game at all. The Patriots had 12 design carries for 20 yards and 1 first down in this game, and I'm just going to tie it into the most disappointing. Ramondre Stevenson and Antonio Gibson, look, these are the guys that are supposed to at least provide some sort of balance to this offense, right? We saw it a little bit earlier in the year, especially when they beat the Bengals. They were playing well against Seattle, games like that. But this running game is just completely stagnated, and now you have a team where you have a rookie quarterback. You have a lot of young receivers who have been kind of struggling. We already know the offensive line issues. Now, in part because of the offensive line issues also, they're getting nothing out of their run game. This can't be Drake May out here by himself, just trying to make himself better and develop with no help at all. I mean, you talk about the offensive line, 0.7 yards before contact per attempt on those 12 design carries. And this was not a game that was a blowout, right? Even though, you had the Parker Washington punt return, it was 22-10 at halftime, but that's also not some insurmountable lead where you have to just throw the ball every play, right? This was the Patriots for probably 3/4 of this game were at least in it, but they just couldn't run the ball at all. And it's not like it's a great Jacksonville defense you're going against. So, I mean, Stevenson, Gibson, the one running back who scored a touchdown was Jermichael Hasty, who honestly before this game I didn't even know he was on the roster. They need some sort of it's the theme every single week, even if whether you're going to play Drake May or Jacoby Brissett or whoever. They need some sort of help. They need some sort of balance. And it's just the problem of when you can't block people and the running backs aren't making extra things happen outside of that, and you have 20 design rushing yards in a game, you're probably not going to win because you're putting too much on your rookie quarterback.
Walt in the chat saying that Patriots should give Corey Dillon some more touches. I agree. Maybe you can see what he's doing, get him out there for next week and see what he can make happen. No, I think that I agree with you. Jermichael Hasty, by the way, he seems like one of those running backs where if he scores a touchdown randomly for like one team and then literally the next week I saw him score for another team, both of those I wouldn't flinch. I'd be like, yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. And then, 3-4 weeks later, it's like, oh, Jermichael Hasty, nice little catch for a first down. For a third completely different team, and be like, yeah, of course. Yeah, right. I believe it. You mentioned that the story of this game was about the running game. One team was able to do it, the other team was not. You talked about the team that was not able to do it. I'll talk about the team that was, and it was Jacksonville. We here on the show, and I think everybody likes to talk about the deep passing game for this team, right? We get very frustrated when Brian Thomas Jr. doesn't have the days like he had this past Sunday, or when Christian Kirk isn't able to get as involved, or Evan Ingram or Gabe Davis is struggling with deep passes because that's why he was brought in, right? We like to focus on the deep passing game for Jacksonville, but in reality, you don't want to make a living off of that. You don't want it to just be all on passing the ball deep down the field, because as we have seen through, I would say, the first 5 or 6 weeks of the season, when you do that, that is when you stall. That is when the third down conversion percentage goes down, because you sit here on 3rd and 4 and you go, all right, pass it deep, I guess. Like, that's what we do. No, it's got to be more simple than that, especially on the early downs as well. And I felt like Jacksonville specifically, they are at their best when they run the football. And I think that that's sort of an obvious duh. Every team is like that. But for a team that gets all the publicity for their passing attack, what they did on the ground is the reason why they won this game against the Patriots in the fashion in which they were able to do so. Tank Bigsby in this game, 26 carries, 118 yards, 4.5 yards per carry average. Dearness Johnson, a 4.2 yards per carry average. So to have two running backs, your one and your two there, because Travis Etienne didn't play in this game, average more than 4 yards a carry, that's what we're talking about. That's what this Jags offense needs. Not, sure, like, yeah, we'd like some of the receivers to play better, but the passing game in general is much more variance. It's much more up and down. So we can sit here and say, oh man, I'd like more consistency out of Christian Kirk or Gabe Davis or whatever. The real answer for Jacksonville is the floor cannot be as low as it has been through the first 5-6 weeks of the season. And that floor is so low because the offense just is either red hot or it's completely cold. And the only reason why that's the case is because they can't run the football. And on Sunday, they were able to run the football. And if they're able to do things like that, then you start to complement it with that deep passing game, and it truly becomes an overall offensive philosophy that gets to come to life. So how the Jags did in the run game is a big reason why they won this game. They were third in the NFL in EPA per rush. It was the highest EPA per rush that they have had through 7 weeks of the season. I think that's why you saw them look as comfortable as they did on offense. Most impressive from you in this game.
I'll go back on the other side, and there's a couple of reasons the Patriots couldn't run the ball also on the Jags side. Their linebackers were spectacular in this game. Foye Oluokun was out. They kind of needed some guys to fill in alongside Devin Lloyd. Devin Lloyd, a really good game himself, flying all over the place in the run game, an 80.8 run defense grade. But I want to point out the two guys filling in for Oluokun. You had Ventrell Miller, Florida Gator, former Florida Gator, right? 90.6 run defense grade. He was flying all over the place in run defense. Chad Muma had a really good game in coverage coming in for Miller. He had a 74.9 coverage grade. The Jaguars linebackers, especially without really the guy who's like their veteran captain, he's led the league. Oluokun, I think, has led the league in tackles multiple times. He's really the guy that's usually doing that. They found a way to fill in. Devin Lloyd had a great game as the usual starter. Those other two guys were good in Oluokun's stead. The run defense for the Jaguars was just as responsible for the Patriots' struggles in the run game as were their own struggles.
Jerry Jones, I want to shout him out. He was one of those players who was on the top 5 list for the Jacksonville Jaguars, but the rookie is playing well. I was really impressed with him throughout the draft season when I got to see him in person, specifically at the East-West Shrine Bowl. And, man, I thought he played really well. 86.2 coverage grade in this game, 36 coverage snaps. He was targeted 7 times, did give up 5 catches for 34 yards, but had 2 forced incompletions as well. They targeted him quite a bit. It was an active day for Jones, but more often than not, he was the one who was winning some of those reps. And so I think that's what we've been looking for, right? I think when Tyson Campbell was out specifically, we were wondering, hey, who else in the secondary is really going to step up for this group? And even with Tyson Campbell out there, Jerry Jones being able to get into this lineup, I think is pretty huge. Most disappointing for you in this?
It's really, again, it's Ramondre Stevenson and Antonio Gibson. With New England, just their lack of run game and lack of help for Drake May is really an overarching theme, a disappointing theme. And we knew it was coming before the season. It's not like it's surprising, but you would like to see May get a little more help. Because, again, I thought when he was put in good situations in this game, when he had a clean pocket, when he wasn't pressured in a second and a half, when he was at least getting somewhat to work off some play action, I think that's one thing that needs to be said. Drake May, through 2 starts, has not looked awful. He's probably made the best of what he can of the situation that he has, but the situation is it's rough, to say the least. And one more thing I just want to throw out there with Jerry Jones, too. Mm-hmm. Performances like this and more season-long performances like this with so many teams in the nickel, it's going to be guys like Jerry Jones who start getting slot corners drafted higher, because it's just such an important thing nowadays. And I think a guy like him, or a guy we saw, Mike Sainristil, still drafted for Washington in the second round.
Another good game this weekend.
These guys, and then you see Trent McDuffie and Michael Carter and some other good guys in the slot. Guys like Jones are going to just continue to increase the future value of these slot corners. We saw Kenny Moore get a new contract this offseason. I just think it's I think it's a position that's going to get more and more valued in the offseason every single year. You have to be able to defend in the slot, and if he's a guy who can do that for Jacksonville long term, that's big time.
That is a great call out, because I agree with you completely there. My most disappointing, Jalen Polk's bumming me out, man. And he's bumming me out because I like Jalen Polk a lot. He was a fun receiver, obviously, in that Washington offense. And specifically, it felt like any time Michael Penix Jr. last year needed a big-time contested catch. Yeah, of course, Rome Odunze was there as well. I don't want to take anything from Rome Odunze. But, man, Polk had some crazy full extension, contested catch situations. It looked like he had some of the best hands in the draft. And so far this season, I mean, he was disappointing again this game specifically, but I wanted to take it to just overall this season. 58.8 catchable passes caught this season. Like, the number that you want's in the 80s, low 90s. And he's at 58.8. He's caught 10 of 28 total targets this season, and he's just 3 of 11 on contested catches. It's got to be better from Jalen Polk. And we didn't talk a lot about Drake May in this one. I thought Drake May had some really nice big-time throws. I thought he played a little bit better under pressure this week compared to last week, and so that obviously was a key for the Patriots moving forward. I mentioned at the beginning of this segment, hey, these are teams that, sure, both of them would have loved to get a win, but the real win for the Patriots is just the fact that Drake May looked pretty good for a handful of throws. It's time for Jalen Polk to step up. We need Jalen Polk to at the very least establish himself as a wide receiver 2 on this team moving forward. Maybe they go out and get an even better wide receiver 1 this offseason. Who knows? We'll see. But it's got to be better from their rookie Jalen Polk moving forward as now Drake May is in there.